I don't know if this is accurate. They put a summary of your question up where you were saying, is it possible that the Big Bang and the creation event that the Bible described both happened? I'd say that the answer to that is no. The biblical account of creation is demonstrably false. It is not in the same order of how we know things occurred. I mean, it has plants before the sun. It has the earth, in the beginning. That's not the case. As Aaron just pointed out, the universe is about 14 billion years old, and the Earth's about 4.5 billion years old. So obviously they weren't around at the same time.
One very simple way to look at this is that you have to realize that the stories in Genesis are written from the perspective of someone who lives on the earth, has limited knowledge of the earth, and no knowledge whatsoever of anywhere else in the universe. Everything is geocentric in that perspective. And so, of course, the earth is like an infinite plane, and the stars, along with the sun and the moon, were all created at the same time, in the same breath. Somehow it took 4 days to create the earth, but 1 instant to create the sun, the moon, and the stars. And there's no recognition of the fact that the moon is just a body of rock much as we, or that the sun is just another star. The people who wrote those stories had no idea. They were people. And that's where the limitations are.
Yeah, the only kind of apologetic that goes along those lines, in order to distinguish what we're reading, for example, in the Bible or in any other supposed holy book, is that these people supposedly received their inspiration and their information through some divine psychic hotline to God. Well, not only is that something that is not supported by evidence, but either their God is just a bumbling buffoon who can't relay information effectively or didn't know what he was talking about, or they're just wrong. And there was no communication. Well, if there was no communication, then you don't have any book that tells you anything at all about any being that you might want to call a God. So you've got a big storybook. And, while there may be some cool stories in there, there's no reason for anybody, at least no reason that I can see, for anybody to base their understanding of reality and the universe and science and the world in which we live upon that book.
Living here in the United States, you are no doubt immersed in a thoroughly Christian society, and that's probably the only perspective that you're aware of. Any other religious perspective is going to be a smaller group, a subgroup, a cult, or something along those lines. But the reality is that while Christianity, all-inclusive, all 38,000 different denominations combined, do collectively account for the world's largest religion, just after that you've got Islam, and then after that you've got Hinduism. And if we look at Hinduism for a moment, we're talking about 800 million people who have a completely independent view of religion, a totally different Godhead than anything that you're familiar with. I mean, if you were to read the Bhagavad Gita, in it, Lord Krishna describes how he created not just this earth, but many others. How he created not just this universe, but a multiverse. Now, this book was written centuries at least before the Bible was begun. The earliest archaeological evidence that you have of the Bible is maybe 300 BCE, and that's it. And the Bhagavad Gita was already complete centuries before that. Now, here's a religious perspective in which a man claims to be Krishna, which means Christ, effectively. We're talking about the same sort of individual. He talks about how he created the world. Now, if you were to read the Bhagavad Gita, and it were to strike you as truth, then I guess I don't have anything to say about this, but then what I would predict is that when you read the Bhagavad Gita, it will come across to you not as divine wisdom, not as revealed truth. I would think that you would read this ancient document, this sacred tome, and come away thinking that this was just a storybook and that it wasn't as divine or wise or moral as it was reputed to be. And once you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you were to come to that opinion of it, you would then have a very good idea of the perspective that I have reviewing your Bible. Did we lose her?
I don't know.
No.
Okay.
I'm here.
Did you have any other question?
No, thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Sean.
Uh-huh.
We've got Gabriel in Columbus. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
It's all right.
Good.
It's all right.
I wanted to say, first of all, thanks a lot for getting yourselves together because, in my mind, you guys, aronra and the host of the Atheist Experience, are just intellectual powerhouses, and I'm
Wonder
so happy
Twin
you guys
powers activate.
You're in the same place. Yeah. So on that note, I'm just wondering if you guys have any, recommended reading for your hosts, or for not your hosts, your audience. Matt, I've heard you mention a few books. I've got Innumeracy. I've read that, and I have Freedom Evolves on my shelf. I'm going to get to that soon. But I wonder if, for both of you, if you guys have any recommended reading, and I'll take a call up there. So thanks a lot.
All right.
Oh, well, I was going to ask on what subjects, because there's a broad range. I mean, when I'm talking about general skepticism and reason like that, Innumeracy and, more importantly, Demon Haunted World are the first two that I recommend. But if you're looking for something that specifically deals with Christianity or Christianity, church history, things like that, Bart Ehrman's got a couple of good books like Jesus Interrupted and Lost Christianities. Those are easily my two favorites. And then there's other books, in addition to Dennis' books on free will. He's got books on religion. Boy, the list is long. I don't know. You want to toss some?
I don't want to throw anything out there either. No, I read little bits of everything.
Yeah.
And as it's like you said, it's such a broad range that where do I start with? I'm going to start with Demon Haunted World, or I start with the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, we get this question a lot, and part of me wants to put together like this, Matt's reading list, except that it would be incredibly short. I mean, I read lots of books. There's stacks of books at home. Some of them I've managed to get all the way through. Some of them I haven't. By and large, there are a handful of books that were really significant. Reading Hume's work was incredibly, and Voltaire and Ingersoll is probably my number one recommendation. They were all important, but as Aaron just pointed out, I've gone through and I'm
got
picking
one book
in
to suggest.
bits and pieces of stuff, and I do a ton of my reading online, and I'll read 10 or 20 different things online, and then compare them and come to my own conclusions about,
I'd like to recommend reading Darwin and not The Origin of the Species. I would suggest that anybody who's interested in this controversy at all should read on The Voyage of the Beagle, which was written long before he had conceived or begun to understand evolution, because it gives his perspective on being a globetrotter, on going around the world in a day when slavery still existed in many places, and when all the people that want to accuse Darwin of being a racist or promoting racism or of being involved in eugenics at all of those illusions are going to dissipate rather quickly when you read the man's own words. He was adamantly against all of the things that are currently attributed to him by his detractors.
So while we're waiting for the next set of calls to queue up, I'll remind folks about dinner, because I never know if I remind enough or forget. But since we got a guest in town, and by the way, somebody should call Threadgills and let them know that hell's coming. But I was curious. For some of your videos, it's you sitting there talking and presenting your opinions just as you would on this show. Others are edited together with lots of images in a way that really paints the picture so that people can understand it. For a video like that that's 5-10 minutes long, how much time do you spend putting that thing together?
Well, there was a lot of research that went into before I ever started the series, because right. I was posting online arguments a great deal of my time on Talk Toward Origins for about a decade before I started the series. I had already seen every counter argument, and so I knew if I make this presentation, I know what the counter argument is going to be. I have to counter the counter argument in the same presentation. So knowing in advance what they're all going to be, I show up the refutation in a slideshow while I'm talking. So it has to be overlapped layers of data. A lot of people say it's too compacted, but it's the only way that I can present it without it being dismissed offhand. Right. When the refutation is right there, well then you can't just slide it off that easily. So it would put me knowing in advance what the general idea was. I wrote out some scripts for all of the specific points I wanted to make, and then each individual video I think took me an average of 3 weeks to a month to put together. But it was at a time when I had a lot more time than I have now.
Yeah.